episode of Teves Development. Today we're going to be going over for loops. For loops are a crucial thing to learn for any program you're going to write. Most programs you have written up until now probably did not use for loops, as we're trying to get you to learn the basics of Java before we go into more complicated patterns. But the for loop is something you will use in every single program probably going forward. So let's jump into it. We're going to start by creating a new Java class. We'll call this loops practice. And we will create our main method. And we are good to go. So let's start by thinking about if we had to print out something like hello user, right? If we only had to do this once, it would be really easy. We're done, right? We can run this and we'll be good to go. Now let's think about if we had to do this 10 times, right? And that's still not very hard. We can just copy this. We have 5, and then we can double 5 into 10, and we're done, right? We can run this 10 times. See? But let's say we had to run this 100,000 times, right? That's not going to be very fun or efficient to copy and paste this 100,000 times. So we can use a for loop to accomplish this task. So let's go ahead and delete all of these but one. We'll keep one. We'll need it. So a for loop starts by using the word for, and then we'll do int I equals 0. While I is less than 10, I plus plus. So this is a for loop. Now let's dive into each of the individual statements that we wrote. First, we have int I equals 0. So what this is doing is we're instantiating a new int I, and we're setting it to 0. The next is going to be kind of like an if statement. If I is less than 10, we will continue inside of the for loop and execute what's inside. And then after we're done executing this, we'll increment I. So how it'll work is if we put this in here, it'll run this system.out.println hello user 10 times. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you can see, it's ran 10 times. Great. Now this is a lot easier to do 100,000 times, right? All we have to do is that, and then we will run this hello world or hello user program 100,000 times, as you can see here. So you may think, yeah, it's a lot easier, but what else can I do with a loop? Well, let's say we had to print out a user ID with this user, and that user ID we'll say is I. We could do something along the lines of hello user plus I. And what this will do is it'll print out what I is after hello user. So let's pause the video and think what it's going to do for a second. Great. So if you guessed how this will work is print hello user 0, hello user 1, hello user 2, all the way up to 9, you would be correct. So why don't we run this and see? And as you can see here, it did that. Now you may think, wait, why did it only go up to 9? Remember, we started at 0 and we went up to 10. So if we count these out in an actual size, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we could do something along the lines of, to get the same aspect, is to set this to 1 and then make this greater than or equal to 10. And then we could get the same result, but starting at 1. The possibilities are endless. So let's think about doing something else. So let's say we have an array of consoles, right? We'll do this as string array consoles equals, and then we'll do this Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. And then let's say we wanted to print out every single console in that console array. We could do something along the lines of this, right? Print line consoles at 0. And then we could copy this, print it out 3 times, and then change this to 1 and this to 2, right? And then we will get all of the consoles printed out from that string array. But let's say again, there's 500,000 consoles inside the string array. We don't want to write this out 500,000 times. So again, we could use a for loop. So we'll do the same thing, int I equals 0, while I is less than. Now the issue is how do we know how many times we want to loop? Before we knew we wanted to loop 10 times or 100,000 times, and that's what we set it as. But here, we need to loop the amount of consoles there are in the string array. Now Java's got this built in. We can do this as consoles.length, and then we will get the length of the consoles array, and then we can increment I. And then we can do something like system.out.print line consoles at I, because as we remember, I is going to change every single time we iterate through this loop. So let's think about this before we run it. We're going to have int I equals 0, while I is less than consoles.length. Consoles.length will be 1, 2, 3. So 0 is less than 3. So we will go through and print out consoles at 0 and then increment I. So then we'll be at I equals 1. Same thing, it'll print out the 1th index, and then it'll increment I. And then I will equal 2. 2 is less than the length of 3, so we'll print out the 2nd index, and then this is where it's going to terminate. So now I is going to be 3. 3 is not less than consoles.length, which is also 3, so we're going to terminate this for loop and be done with the program. So why don't we run this and give it a try? We should get the same exact result as we did before. Awesome. We could also see this as doing something like this. Our current index is we'll fix this and we'll see Xbox, our current index is 0, PlayStation, our current index is 1, Switch, our current index is 2, and then it terminated. So this is the basis of loops. One more thing I want to note here is this can be anything you want. You could make this high, right? And then you would just have to change all of these I's to high. The reason why most of the time we will do I is because it's short for index. If you are going to do a loop inside of a loop, which we will talk about in another video, you could use the variable j, which is most common. But I is generally good practice because it's short for index. But you can put any variable you want there. As always, like the video if you learned something new. Leave a comment down below about what you think, if we could do anything better. And don't forget to subscribe. It really helps grow the channel, and we'll see you next time.